Mexican-American musical group Yaritza y Su Esencia have been the target of criticism for comments they made during a recent trip to Mexico.
In today's video, we're going to talk about the public backlash, mostly from Mexicans from Mexico, against these three American-raised siblings.
The things people have been saying have brought up a lot of mixed emotions for us, so we thought it might be helpful to process it all with you on this video. We'll cover our personal views on the topic, but also tie this back to a much broader problem.
The reason we decided to make this video is because it's starting to affect our lives here in Mexico and how people perceive us. When we tell people that we're from Chicago, they have some preconceived notions like, do you guys like Mexican food?
They never used to ask us those things before. Real quick, if you're new to the channel, then you should know that we're Jenny and Kevin, two Mexican US Americans from Chicago, born and raised, but with a big love for our roots and heritage. Both of our parents immigrated to the US from Mexico, but 2 years ago, we decided to do the reverse and migrate back to the motherland.
Even though our channel has primarily focused on our travel experience, today's topic really hits close to home because of the divide between our two worlds.
So subscribe if you're interested in Mexico travel videos, food, culture, and of course, topics that impact our experiences as a bicultural couple living in Mexico. Okay, so who are Yaritza y Su Esencia, and what did they say that pissed so many people off? They're a musical group from Washington State, three siblings, Yaritza and her brothers Jairo and Armando, who play regional Mexican music and gain popularity via TikTok throughout the US and Mexico, as well as with a recent collaboration with the well-known Grupo Frontera. They're Chicanos. The term Chicano or Chicana refers to a person of Mexican descent born and raised in the United States, like us. Though we didn't really grow up using the term because it was more popular during the US civil rights movement, and we tend to call ourselves Mexican Americans, but we mean the same thing. So the eldest of the trio, Armando, was born in Michoacan, where their parents are from, while Jairo and Yaritza were born in the US. They all grew up in the Yakima Valley of Washington State, where not too long ago, they were helping their dad work and pick fruit in the fields. And trust me, this is important context because it'll help us understand why this is also controversial. So just as their career is taking off, the internet is quick to cancel them for some things they said in a visit to Mexico City. Let's watch the clip together to hear what they said.
Sí me gusta, pero no me gusta cuando me levanto, como me estoy durmiendo porque se escuchan como los carros y las sirenas de los policías y todo.
No me gusta mucho la comida, me gusta más de donde vivimos. Allá en Washington, la neta, le dan un sazón que sí pica y sabe bueno.
Para mí también es la comida porque yo soy bien delicado y pues casi nomás como chicken, ajá. Puras como alas de que no también que no tengan chile, no me gusta nada de eso.
Ay, chamacos. Okay, so I think the question was something like, how are you liking your visits to Mexico? Or how are you liking Mexico? And Yaritza, at first she says, yeah, I like it, but, and this is where I think she messed up, but I don't like the noise in the mornings when I wake up, the traffic, the police sirens. She focused on the negative. And then you have Armando.
Armando, who's saying that food in Washington's a little bit more spicy.
Better than Mexico?
Better than Mexico.
I mean, okay.
I wonder what the dude had because, not all food is great in Mexico, but, it is really, really delicious. But again, maybe they had a bad experience and they kind of just generalized.
He said it was more spicy in Washington. Like, what? Yeah.
What could be more spicy? I don't know.
And then you have Jairo, who was like, yeah, I'm delicate. Soy delicado. I don't even like the
spicy
food here, spicy food at all.
He
prefers chicken wings. So yeah, he really came across as like really special and like, and I get why this offended a lot of people, especially a lot of Mexicans, mostly in Mexico, but even some Mexicans in the US were offended by all this. I think a lot of people took this as them disowning their culture or disrespecting their culture. So Mexico was really quick to cancel them on social media. This controversy has been a trend on both major news networks and social media, with people making fun of these kids, saying things like, I'd love to hear their song, but I'm too delicate for my ears and I don't like noise. And this one, it was a pleasure to meet you, but us Mexicans are also delicate. Good luck in your country. Hopefully you succeed in your land. Copy and paste. And then many added, adios Chicanos, to the end of it, like this one here. Mexicans are known for their memes, and they proliferated memes fast, teasing Yaritza's reaction to being served soda in a bag, as is common in Mexico Mexico, and even commercial brands joined the bandwagon for a marketing opportunity. This meme points out that there are Mexicans who might even agree with some of the comments made by Yaritza. A lot of the memes showed anti-indigenous sentiments, alluding to the apparent indigenous features the kids have. In Mexico, being compared to an indigenous person is widely perceived as an insult. Mexico, your racism is showing. They later apologized for their remarks after the public backlash, but people haven't been so forgiving. Mexicans demanded they be removed from an upcoming music festival in Mexico City.
I mean, my immediate reaction is like, these guys are kids, you know, they're so young and mature. They're not professionals. They went up there, just kind of maybe got a little bit too comfortable and said what came freely to their mind. And hey, that backfires sometimes, especially at that level, you know. I think
But what does it mean when the first thing that comes to your mind are negative things? Does that mean that is showing their true feelings, like their negative feelings about it? Like, I think that's how a lot of people took it, so that's why I raised that question.
I mean, I don't know. I guess we have to see the complete interview. We don't know what the conversation is before that, but
the internet doesn't care about the context. They don't care about the complete story. They just see this one clip and they run with it, and it was enough to piss off a lot of people, so much in fact that they have been withdrawn from an upcoming music festival here in Mexico City, Festival Arre, after backlash from social media on Mexicans not wanting them to perform, not wanting to hear their music.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But at the same time, you know, I feel for these kids. Like, not everybody gets the same opportunities in the United States to connect to their heritage. Like, their parents could have been, undocumented and not been able to bring back their children at a young age to reconnect with the roots. The same way that me or you got the opportunity to, you know, like these kids, they just grew up kind of like learning the language from their parents, working in the fields and things like that. But not every Mexican or not every, immigrant in the United States gets the opportunity to reconnect with their roots. And a lot of that has to do with the parents. So, I don't know. I feel for them because I worked in the community of Cicero where it was mostly, Mexican immigrants or undocumented children.
Or descendants of Mexican immigrants.
Yeah, and they don't have this connection with Mexico, not because they don't want to, just because they haven't had that opportunity besides like social media or the kind of food that you get back at home.
What do you say about the people who blame the parents? Well, the parents didn't teach them to appreciate their culture. What do you say about that?
Well, it's rough. It's rough. Like, you come, I feel like as an immigrant, our parents came, and sometimes you don't have the community that you have in certain areas in the United States. Maybe Washington doesn't have a big Mexican community, or we don't know. But at the same time, it's tough. Parents work like 40 to 60 hours a week. Kids go to school. People are picky. There's so much that happens in the United States that a lot of people in Mexico probably don't understand, and that's where the culture starts erasing a little bit, or like
people just start losing.
There's just not the same opportunities that you have to make your children reconnect with roots sometimes, and it's tough. It's tough, man. I don't know. What do y'all think out there?
Do you think that what they said was wrong, or are you on the more empathetic side where, well, they're kids who were speaking their minds and they weren't really thinking about how what they said was going to come across? But what it makes me think is, does not liking something you ate in Mexico City, does not liking the noise of traffic in Mexico, does that mean that you turn your back on your culture? Like, well, I don't agree with what they said. I think they definitely should have not said these things. I feel like the internet kind of took this too far. I feel like people overreacted. They're bullying these kids for being honest about some things that they didn't like. Yeah, they should have focused on things that they did like instead. But that's where media training comes in. Maybe they didn't get media training. They're just starting out in their career. And the internet has no empathy for these kinds of things. And
everybody got Twitter fingers talking smack, no vengas a Mexico, etc., etc. I don't know, it's way too harsh, you know what I mean? Like, we get that on our YouTube videos all the time. We're walking around and it's like, well, ¿por qué no hablan en español si están en México? And I'm like, pues, ¿por qué Luisito Comunica no habla en inglés cuando va a Estados Unidos? Like, it's just...
People are always going to have things to say. And this is where it comes back to why it affects us and our lives here in Mexico, is because when we tell people that we're U.S. born and raised, but we love our Mexican roots, they are often surprised. Like, oh, you don't have the accent that we expect you to have. because we're not all the same, because we don't, like Kevin said, we don't all get the same opportunities to develop our language skills bilingually. It's hard to develop bilingual skills in the U.S. It's not that easy.
Even within my own family, the language skills start changing from like my sibling to my next sibling, because the opportunities also change for my siblings to reconnect with their roots in Mexico, you know, due to all the crime that was happening in the early 2000s, etc. But
so now people that we meet here are looking at us like, so are you like those kids from Yaritza y Su Esencia?
nomás comen chicken.
You only eat chicken? Like, it's kind of like teasing, but also I think it really is starting to impact the way people view Chicanos. Or there are people who call people like us pochos, which is a word that like is annoying, but
sets you in a category that's like, you look like us, but you're not really us.
Not really us. And then for anyone who's not familiar, a pocho is usually a Mexican immigrant or a Mexican descendant who was born or raised or grew up or moved to the United States and starts to assimilate more with the American culture, and kind of their Mexican culture starts to take a back seat.
It's derogative to
it's rude, and it's rude, but it also I think points to the broader problem here, and that's what I wanted to get to with all of this, is that I feel like there's like this ongoing tense relationship between Mexicans in the United States or Mexican Americans in the US and Mexicans in Mexico, where why is it a rivalry? Like, why is it that Mexicans from Mexico think that Mexicans who migrate to the US start to think they're better than Mexicans? And you know what? Maybe it's because there are some people who act like that. Some people act too good and say that they're delicate and that's how these kids came across. That's how these kids came across, and I get why people are offended. But at the same time, it's more complicated than what it looks like.
And this is not the first time this happens. I remember when I was a kid, like in 1990s, I think it was 1996, for anybody who doesn't know, Oscar de la Hoya, who is a Chicano, Mexican-American born boxer, he fought the legendary Julio Cesar Chavez, which was at the top of the pinnacle of his career from Mexico. He's a god out here. They fought in 1996, and Oscar de la Hoya in 1992 actually represented the United States in the Olympics. So when the fight happened in 1996 between these two boxers, of course the promotion was Mexico versus USA, referring to Chavez as Mexican and De La Hoya as American. But when the box happened, De La Hoya, he actually came out with his boxers with one flag. One side of the boxers was a Mexican flag and the other one was an American flag, representing both countries.
But Mexicans were not having it.
No, because what happened was that Oscar De La Hoya beat Chavez. He dethroned the Mexican king, and Mexicans weren't having it.
The world was telling us there's one way to be Mexican, Oscar's way or the Julio way.
It wasn't until the Chavez fight that people started questioning and people started saying he's not a real Mexican.
Inside I was like, I'm gonna prove to all these Mexicans that I'm Mexican enough.
And another classic example, Selena, my icon, our Mexican-American Tejana queen. There's a particular movie scene that is famous and echoes in my mind all the time, where her dad goes,
and down there you gotta speak perfectly or the press will eat you up and spit you out alive. Being Mexican-American is tough. Anglos jump all over you if you don't speak English perfectly. Mexicans jump all over you if you don't speak Spanish perfectly. And we gotta prove to the Mexicans how Mexican we are, and we gotta prove to the Americans how American we are. We gotta be more Mexican than the Mexicans and more American than the Americans. It's exhausting.
And to me, this is just another example where Mexican Americans or Chicanos or pochos, whatever you want to call us, are held to a certain standard that's never gonna satisfy either side. We're never gonna satisfy Americans. We're never gonna satisfy Mexicans. We're always just gonna be us, and we're all gonna be so different. We love Mexican music, even though Yaritza y Su Esencia is not necessarily like our type of music, but we love banda, we like norteñas, we also love salsa. We speak Spanish, but not everyone loves that music. We know a lot of Mexicans that prefer 80s American rock to banda.
I know a lot of Mexicans that prefer Starbucks coffee. I mean, the lines are blasting.
Like there are longs for Little Caesars Pizza, Domino's, McDonald's here in Mexico City, and nobody's telling them, oh wow, you're trying to be American. But for us, Mexican Americans, I feel like, even though I disagree with what these kids said, I do feel for them, and that's what this comes down to. before we start to wrap this up, there's one more clip we want to show you guys. Something that really did make me cringe. It's a TikTok live where Yaritza was on with a Mexican influencer where Yaritza refuses to speak Spanish.
No me estés hablando en español, por favor. Háblame en inglés. No te estoy gritando, nadie me está gritando.
Tú tienes que hablar en español, porque tú eres un cantante en español.
Háblame bonito, háblame.
Mira, Yari, tú tienes que hablar en español porque tú eres una cantante mexicana en español. Tu chat habla español. Hay mucha gente en México que habla español y que no hablan inglés.
Eso no significa, nomás porque canto en español, la gente me escucha que son de México, no importa. Si yo hablo inglés más que en español, si no me quieren escuchar o no quieren estar en mi vivo y no entienden, pues voy a hablar en español cuando yo quiera, voy a hablar en inglés cuando yo quiera. Yo pienso que, pues, si no les gusta, se pueden retirar.
Mamoncita.
Okay, this was kind of hard for me to watch, and again, mixed emotions, because I get where she's coming from. I get that uncomfortable feeling of being expected to be perfect in Spanish, but not being able to fully express yourself. But also, it was pretty rude of her to be on a TikTok live with a Mexican in Spanish, with a Mexican audience, and say, I'm not gonna speak Spanish. Sí se puso un poquito mamoncita. Like, I think she could have handled that a little bit better, but again, like we said, she's not a professional, and even I caught myself holding her to like higher standards. And again, she's a teenager, but I'm also like, oh, I'm so back and forth. I don't know how I feel about
I just
this.
saw a little kid. I mean, the kids acting too comfortable on TikTok, this is just like normal to them, but they don't realize that they're representing something way bigger on the internet.
That's the thing. And I feel like that a lot, like especially when people meet us, I feel like I have to, make a good impression on behalf of Chicanos and Mexican Americans, but man, it's tough to be de aquí, de allá. That the famous phrase is ni de aquí, ni de allá, but we like to take our own take on that, and that's de aquí, de allá, because we're from here and from there. Feeling like you belong nowhere but to both at the same time it's a really special place to be. By the way, you can get these t-shirts on our store at eatbythetravel.shop, myshopify.com. Sorry, shameless plug here. This is my favorite t-shirt. We're gonna put a discount code in the comments below for you to get one on your first purchase. But back to Yaritza, is she right to defend her language preferences, or what do you guys think? Seriously, we really want to know what you guys think about this. Even if you're not Mexican or Mexican American, we really look forward to hearing all the perspectives on this. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Se cuidan, se bañan y nos vemos en la próxima. Chao.